As a guy who's been in radio for 25 plus years, and I'm getting a chance to do my 6,000th show this coming Monday, I can tell you, I'm not bragging, I'm just saying it to myself because I can't believe it, I'm tired. No, I'm serious. Someone said, when are you gonna retire? And I often look at them when they say that and see if it's wishful thinking or not. But when they say that, I say, no, I'm not going to retire. And said, when are you going to do it? I said, first day I go to work. I never go to work. You know, I think if you're passionate about what you do, no matter if it's talk radio or whatever it might be, it's really important that every single day you go in with a passion and a love, trying to find the truth, and being ready to have a conversation where two sides actually listen anymore in this country. Well, our next guest is pretty good at that. She is the executive producer of The Sean Hannity Show, guiding topics, guests, and overall content, driving insightful and intelligent commentary on news and politics. She's worked alongside Sean Hannity for over a decade now to produce the award-winning 5 weekday radio shows. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lynda McLaughlin to the stage. She's been in for over 20 years, and let's reintroduce Rose Tennent back to the stage for a conversation.
Hi, I'm back. So Lynda and I have been friends, unless she's yelling at me in my ear when I'm sitting in for Hannity and telling me, you better be good on this show or stop taking a long breath. But we've been friends for a very long time, and we've both worked in media just about all our lives. So Lynda has a question for all of you. She wants to know how you're feeling.
Yeah, I just, can you guys all hear me? Yeah. So, you know, I was sitting out here because I love to sit with the people because that's normally where I am. I'm behind the scenes, which I love. And are you guys enjoying it? Like, do you feel engaged? I mean, I think it's so important, right? Like, we're all here. Like, do you feel like you're getting what you want out of it? Like, is there anything you're missing or that you want to know more of? Because, I mean, I'm here to talk to you guys about what's wrong and how we can fix it, because I feel like a lot of people know the problems, but they don't know the answers. And I'm not saying I do, but I'm going to try. But, you know, I just want to make sure that everybody's kind of getting what they want, other than Governor DeSantis, which, you know, we're all excited about. But, you know, I think right now we have, you know, a lot of concern. I look around the room, and I see people talking amongst themselves, and I think it's great to gather and talk. But I think it's really important that we're engaged in listening to one another. You know, I find a lot of times when we're in rooms like this, where we're all like on the same side, we're thinking about what we're going to say next, and we're not listening to what the person is saying right then. I can't stand that. It drives me insane. And so, you know, Rose is here to ask me about conservative media and how we can win and what we can do better, and I hope that we can. But if there's anything anybody wants to tell me that we can do better with some of the people I work with, I would love to hear your thoughts. So.
And she'll have time afterwards, too, for that. So one of the things that we've noticed, or I've noticed, and I think a lot of people in this room have as well, is that even conservative media seems to be a little out of touch these days. And I'm reminded, Lynda, of the 15-ballot, 4-day vote for McCarthy, for Speaker, right? And it was interesting to me, Lynda, because a lot of people in conservative media were wringing their hands and saying, oh my God, it's the end of the world, and they need to wrap this up. And yet, that minority in the House that was kind of holding back was actually representing a majority outside of the House. And am I right? See, here we go. And I saw how you expressed yourself on social media. And I thought, God, these guys are tone deaf. A lot of the conservative media was missing it. Now, after they started seeing what people were saying, day 2, day 3, they started backtracking a little bit. Do you feel that as conservatives, some of us may have become tone deaf to a degree?
Yeah, I mean, I think in large part, you know, obviously I work for Sean Hannity, right? So we got a lot of hate, we got a lot of love. There's literally no medium. Everybody's on one side or the other every day of the week. I think, you know, one of the other things I do is I run another small company, and I represent a lot of other people. So Sarah Carter, Leo Terrell, John Solomon, Jeffrey Lord. And, you know, what I found is it's been very educational for me to see where people are on everything. And obviously, Sean really got a lot of hate for supporting McCarthy during that whole thing. And part of my job is to get the message out about, you know, we want to win the war. This is one battle, you know? And people were very angry. They were like, well, Lauren Boebert needs to be heard, and Scott Perry, who I personally love, and I think he's amazing. I know he was here earlier. They were kind of speaking their mind, but we need to use media in a way where we're heard. And as Republicans, we truly struggle with being unified, in my opinion. So, everybody's attacking everybody on the same side. Like, we don't need to do that. We have the Democrats to crush us. We need to be unified on our side. So whether you like the fact that Lauren took a little time on the floor and made everybody think for a minute, I kind of appreciated it personally, because you know what? Kevin McCarthy had to really go through it. He had to earn that seat. And as far as I was concerned, I wanted Jim Jordan personally. I love Jim Jordan. And he was really honest. He was like, stop saying my name, I don't want it. Yeah. He was like, please, I'm begging you, please. And I was like, okay, sorry, But there's a real messaging problem with Republicans, in my humble opinion, because we're not seeing the bigger story. And the bigger story was some people started up, some people did something different, and as a result, we got a different result. And now McCarthy is kind of held his feet to the fire. And we are seeing the committees we want. We are seeing the legislation move that we want. We are seeing some of the testimony that we're looking to see. We're finally seeing TikTok or Taibbi or Schellenberger. Or, I'm hoping one day the laptop comes to the fruition and we do see Hunter Biden sit in on Capitol Hill. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'll tell you what, I would love to see it. And I don't think we would have seen it without people like MTG, Scott Perry, Graves, and Lauren Boebert. Give or take what you think of it.
It seems as though lately we hear a lot about the problems, not just from candidates, but from our media sources. And instead, we should be listening for or hearing solutions to some of these problems that we face. And I know that you agree with that, Lynda. You and I have conversations on that all the time. How can media best provide solutions rather than constantly talk the problems?
So I want to talk about this in two ways. Earlier this week, I was on the air with Sean, and I said something, and I don't know if it stuck or not, but I would love to get your thoughts on this. So if you've ever watched C-SPAN, it is quite literally some of the most boring television ever. And we've all watched enough C-SPAN to know that that's true. I personally, as Guy Benson said, I'm a huge political nerd and I love it. But what I will tell you is, one of the ways I think we can use it for our benefit from a media perspective is, if you look at our recent budget bill or any of our current legislation, it's passed without being read. It's always passed without being read, right? Pelosi, literally one of her most famous audio bites was, well, we got to pass the bill to find out what's in it. What are you talking about? And nobody said anything, right? Our side was upset, but we didn't do anything. So what I think would be great, it would be a great use of our media and of our tax dollars, and to really make C-SPAN interesting again, right, would be if we filmed every single voting process. Every single member of Congress or the Senate that has a right to vote on legislation that involves us as the taxpayer, as the citizens, would be filmed. And if you weren't in the room, sitting there reading the bill, all 2,000 pages of it, or 1.7 trillion of it that you think is so important to pass for all of your woke agenda, well, I want to know what part of that means the most to you. And you're going to read it. And you know how we're going to know? Because we're going to see it on TV. We're going to see it on social media, because they're going to stream it on Twitter. They'll definitely stream it on Truth. We'll see it on Parler and Getter. We can tweet it out. And we can become their accountability, because they're certainly not holding themselves accountable. And that, to me, is a good use of media to get back into Capitol Hill, Congress, Senate, and our legislators and saying, well, I didn't see you on camera. Were you there? Because when they do roll call, I don't know about you guys, but unless it's like a really important vote, I don't know who's in the room. And I know a lot of these people personally, and I don't know who's in the room. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a really good use. Additionally, I think when we look at Twitter and the viral TikToks and things like that, like, we love to see other people like getting hurt, falling down, not doing well. I think we need to support each other more. I think there needs to be more videos, more positive messaging, and more things out there about, you know what, I don't really care for Donald Trump. I don't like the way he talks, but if it's a choice between him or DeSantis, I would love either one of them over Biden, right? That's the real message, right? I'm not going to tell you who I like more or better, right? Doesn't matter. I just don't want Biden. For me, it was anybody but Hillary Clinton. Now it's anybody but Biden or Newsom or any of these people. I was going to use a different word, but I didn't do it. Okay.
How many of you are seeing Lynda for the first time? You hear her all the time, right? But you're seeing her. I happened to look up and I thought, God, she's beautiful. She really is. She's beautiful inside and out, too, I can tell you. We underperformed here, particularly in Pennsylvania, but really across the country during the midterm elections.
Yeah.
Is there something that conservative media didn't do right, or at least could have done better, in your opinion?
So Fetterman here, right, we talked a little bit about this, our hoodie senator that no one can find. We all know where he is. He's laying down somewhere. It doesn't really matter. It's what he would be doing if he was in Senate, right? Because he's a check mark for the Democrats, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't help us either way, so I don't really care. But I think the larger issue was there was so much infighting in Pennsylvania. There was so much noise, and it was the loudest on social media. And so social media is something that I do all the time, whether it's print, whether it's radio, whether it's TV, whether it's any of these many platforms. The messaging is the most important thing. And the one thing that Pennsylvania had down was hating one another. We did it really well. I'm from McCormick, I hate Oz. I'm for Oz, I hate Kathy Barnett. Kathy Barnett was never in the military. Oh, you know what? Oz is a shyster. He's not from here. I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
I'm like, are you guys looking at Fetterman?
They came from the same side, yeah.
Fetterman is your enemy. Fetterman, you know? And this, to me, was our biggest problem, right? I'm like, oh my God, guys, please, you know? And it's so funny because, you know, I'm not a proselytizer, but I'm in church every Sunday, and I have a very conservative pastor, but he doesn't act like that in front of us. But like sometimes he'll look in church and he'll be like, you know, like I got your number kind of thing, and I laugh because when that vote was going on, his thing was, let's do the best we can for Pennsylvania and vote for what matters. Get your voices heard, get out there. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm very concerned with our voting process. Specifically in Pennsylvania, it's a national problem, but Pennsylvania is a real problem. And I think one of the ways that we need to get heard is on social media, right? We obviously are going through a lot, and I'm going to divert just a minute here. But the Trump indictment is a really big deal on Tuesday. Everybody's talking about it. You can't escape it. And the one thing that I'm telling everybody that I know and that I can, and I said it on the air yesterday, is do not rally. Do not go out. Because you will not win. The FBI, the DOJ, unless you are in Florida or in some other red state, you will not win here. And I work on 55th Street, and I'm telling you, Trump is across the street, and they are already there. They are camped out. They can't wait to capture you on video doing something, and for all you know, it's an Antifa member dressed up like a MAGA person pretending to do something, and you will lose. You will lose because we don't own the narrative right now. And until we get that narrative back, we don't make the rules. And that's a very hard reality, but it is the reality nonetheless. Look at all the J6 people still sitting in prison. And those things are silenced on social media. Those things are silenced in the news. And one of the biggest questions that I get working with Sean is, how come you don't talk about this? How come you don't talk about this movie? How come you don't talk about this person? You have no idea the amount of restrictions that are put on us on a national show. I see you on Newsmax all the time. I love you. You're amazing. Just want to tell you that. I think you're fabulous. But in all truth, like, you know, these people are, we are hamstrung by what we can say. And we are not allowed to say certain things. It has to be vetted, approved. Our advertisers are down our throats. It is a very serious problem. And unless you're in a national media circuit, you have no idea how serious and how restraining it actually is.
When we started out in conservative media, it was a very exciting time. And we didn't see all the conflict because you just talked about how we weren't even supporting one another. This was all of that, those memes and the meanness came from the same party.
Yeah.
We didn't really see a lot of that then. Are you as excited about working in conservative media as you once were? Do you see some things that concern you right now? Something different, a trend that you're not particularly happy to see?
I mean, I hate TikTok. That's the trend that scares me the most.
Yeah.
I mean, people think that it's, you know, a restriction. You know, I think the thing that I'm most scared of is people who want to silence other people's voices and then won't stand behind them. So, you know, if you looked at what happened to Sean Davis, who runs The Federalist, I don't know if anybody saw what happened to him. He tweeted out something about what happened in Nashville, and then they shut his account down. And like, there was no noise about it on Twitter or Parler or Truth. Like, nobody supported him. And I think unless and until we start to speak very loudly about what's happening to one another, then when it happens to us, it's like, oh yeah, well, it wasn't me. There's a lot of the it wasn't me. You know, and that to me is one of the biggest problems that we have in media. They're not paying attention to, it might not be you right this second, it may be you next time. And I hope that the person sitting next to you doesn't go, well, it's not me, right? So you have to get louder on social media if that is your only avenue. You have to be willing to write an op-ed. You know, like I just got, you guys know Mark Morano? I mean, talk about a baller, right? I mean, he's coming out with this book. He's going up against the Go Green movement. These guys are well-funded, well-sourced. And you talk about, you know, Doug Mastriano and his race, his gubernatorial race here in Pennsylvania, whether you love him or hate him, he was outspent 10-1. I mean, he was not going to, if he was Jesus Christ, he wasn't winning that race. Well, maybe. But you know what I'm saying? I'm just putting that aside for a hot second.
I think
right?
Jesus can do anything
yeah,
he wants.
very true.
But,
right? But in all seriousness, there is something to be said for the amount of money that's going into the narrative and the control. And the Pennsylvania, you know, the Pennsylvania political party, you know, we put a lot of money into things. I don't know that we're putting enough money into correcting the narrative and getting it right.
There are in this room, Lynda, a lot of activists. I mean, most of these people here are very, very involved in every election, and even outside of elections. What can we do? How can we motivate them? How can we help in conservative media with their voice and having their voice heard?
Yeah, so I will tell you, you guys are very, very involved. I saw Moms for Liberty stickers. I saw the Hillsdale College. Yeah, you guys are rocking it, man. The Moms for Liberty, they mean it. You don't mess with mamas. I'm one myself, I feel you. But, you know, these smaller groups, these are the groups that make change. And one of the groups that I'm working with right now is two groups, actually. And one is working with at-risk inner-city youth in Atlanta, Georgia. And I have another woman who is working with, she has a new book out called Addicted to the Addicted. And her son is 21 years old. They're a very affluent family. He's hooked on fentanyl, heroin. He's been Narcan twice because of the fentanyl lacing. And I don't think there's a single person anywhere that isn't touched by this addiction problem that we're having across the nation. So she's starting a movement on the ground, but she's using social media, radio, TV, print. She's written a book. She self-published it because nobody would publish her book. Like, that's taking the initiative. Like, you guys are all here, right? We all got dressed up, took a shower, shoveled coffee down our throat, and got here so that we can help one another. But then we have to take that message and go out there. So, like, I always give the example of Trump, who, you know, Trump couldn't be heard on Twitter. He was being silenced on Facebook, you know, all these huge conglomerates. And so he created Truth. And so he was like, okay, well, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to create my own conservative media outlet, right? So now he's got Truth Media. And everybody's like, oh, it doesn't run right. It's not proper. It doesn't, my messages aren't going out. There's a million complaints about how it's run. The difference is that when Facebook came up, oh, that's weird. The difference is that when Facebook came up, right? Like, I was like, oh. I must have sat on that mic funny, is that when Twitter started and when Facebook started, nobody was paying attention to what was wrong because it was the first of its kind. So we didn't have anything to compare it to. It had all the same problems, we just didn't know. Now with Truth, we know. And so now with Truth, we have to do better. And the thing is you don't want to be the competitor, you want to be the next best thing. So I don't know what the next best thing is. I'm trying all different kinds of things. I'm working with all different kinds of people. But I do think that there is something that can be done. There is something that we can do that is our own little truth in our own little world. So whether that's your small group, whether that's you guys having a quiet sit-in on the Capitol steps, whether it's Moms for Liberty getting the word out to other moms that are at home, that's how we really take back the narrative. And then we use social media and regular media to help spread that message. And once you're like 500 strong, 1,000 strong, they're going to start to listen because your local legislators are where that process really starts.
How long has Hannity been on the air?
Too long.
No. But, you know, what would you say contributes to the success of that show, aside from you?
Well, I've been with Sean 18 years. This is a really long time. And I came on as an intern, and I worked my way up. And I always joke that the first 5 years I worked for him, he had no idea who I was, and nor did he care. But, you know, we've come a long way from that. And what I will tell you, there are a lot of times with Sean on such a national level. He is the #1 show in America on the radio station. We have 737 affiliates all across the nation, and we have several internationally. And the one thing that I always find with him is that he's measured. I'm very, as we were talking before about being emotional, I can be very like, oh my God. And he's like, take it easy. We don't know all the facts. Let's think about it. You know, I'm ready to ram somebody down their throat and be like, I can't believe you said that. And it's like, well, you're missing context. And Jeff is laughing because he knows it's true, and he's been in the studio with me when I'm freaking out. And so, like, I see things in the way that they happen, but he takes his time, and I think that that comes with time. You know, my grandmother used to say that youth is wasted on the young, and I don't disagree with her. Because I do think that when we're young and we have all of that gumption, sometimes we lose a little bit of the perspective. And the perspective is we have to win. It's not Republicans, Democrats, it's us, them. There's the elitists and then there's us. There's people who believe in Americanism, they believe in Americana, they believe in nationalism. I'm one of those people. I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. But we can't be afraid to say it. Like, you go into a room and you see people, you're like, oh, I really like Trump, or I like DeSantis. I like DeSantis. I like Trump. Like, we have to be able to start doing that again. And we don't. We're hiding what we're saying because we don't know what room we're in. You know, and that's a bigger part of the problem too. And whether we're talking about it on social media, like, well, I don't want to say that on Facebook because, you know, my cousin in Idaho, she doesn't like it when I say that, and then, you know, she's going to block me. And I'm like, I just don't know how we got here where we're not allowed to say things and have conversations. And whether that's on social media or in real life, I think it's part of a larger problem, you know, and I think that's where we need to really change.
Okay, you've got to give us like some inside info, okay? Like what goes on behind the scenes? What would people be surprised to know about maybe you and Hannity, the show? What's the craziest thing you've had to do?
I would say the weirdest thing about the show is the amount of corned beef that Sean Hannity eats before every show.
Oh my God.
It is the most repulsive thing I have ever seen in my life. That man eats raw corn, like I'm like, wow, that's like real Irish. That's like deep in your heart Irish, right? No, we went to, I think when we went to Vietnam, we did the Russia Summit 1, we did Russia Summit 2, and we were going through Singapore. It was my second time in Singapore. We went to Vietnam for the second Russia Summit, and we missed our connecting flight because we had all of the gear for TV and radio, and we couldn't get to the next flight. We got laid over in Singapore. We're getting into Vietnam. I'm standing in line. And it's a communist nation in Vietnam, and they have all of the guns and the things and yada, yada. And this guy behind me slaps me in my head because I wasn't moving fast enough for him. Well, I'm from New York. You don't slap me in my head. I'm not sure that you understand what happens after you slap me in my head, but it's not pretty. So I turned around after flying for 3 days and having all this gear, and of course I said very politely, why did you slap me in my head, sir? And like, I'm not even kidding you, like a swarm of military came over and they're like ripping me off the guy. And Sean and the other team is like looking from a few lanes over going, what is happening? What did you do? I'm like, it is not my fault, okay? That guy hit me first. But I really realized in that moment how much we take for granted. Like, I'm annoyed at JFK because somebody's like shuffling too long or like taking selfies of themselves for no reason. Like, I'm like, we're in JFK. But like in Vietnam, I was like, wow, like that just happened. That guy was allowed to hit me, shove me, and the cops came after me. Wow. You know, how much we take for granted those little moments, you know? And I think I've been very fortunate over the last 18 years to meet some really amazing, wonderful people. You know, Rose guest hosts our show all the time on Hannity. Jeff guest hosts our show all the time on Hannity. Governor DeSantis has been a guest. Scott Perry has been a guest. Like, I've met all these amazing people. And don't think just because I work for Hannity, I only like Fox. I love Newsmax. I absolutely love News Nation. I watch all these other things, you know? And I think that's a huge misnomer, is that it's like, oh, you work for Sean Hannity, you know, you only like Fox. Let me tell you something. I got a lot of complaints about Fox, just like the next person. And I am with you on a lot of those things. But I think that I am looking for, you know, on the side of the list, what has more, what has less. I'd rather have Fox any day over MSNBC. I'm just going to say it out loud, right? Let's be honest.
You mentioned earlier, too, that you and I were talking this morning, that you watch CNN because you want to know what they're up to.
So I want to give everybody a little bit of advice. In my studio, I have about 6 TVs, and it's every single network. It's CNN, MSNBC, News Nation, Newsmax, FNC, and then C-SPAN, because we got to suffer through it. And I'm telling you right now, you have to know what the other side is saying, because it is incredible what they are telling people, and there's no way that you can help somebody to know the truth about what the media is lying to them about if you don't know yourself. So in order to change the narrative, we got to know their side of the aisle. And I'm telling you right now, it's one of the most powerful arguments is to know that side.
I think I speak for everyone in the room when I say that we appreciate your contribution to this show. And we love hearing you, especially that New York accent that
Thank you for listening every day. We appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Are we done? All right.